All right, everybody, welcome back for week 3 preview show. I am still Matthew Stanley at Boltfan in Denver on Twitter.
I'm Daniel Stebbins, at DStebbs on Twitter.
And so let's start with last week. So last week, the Chargers had their home opener, a white hot Sunday, and the Chargers blew out the Jaguars. It was a great game in all phases. I mean, the offense produced, defense produced. Mike McCoy actually called a good game, and here we are sitting at 1-1 heading into week 3.
Yep, thank goodness too. It's a shame that week 1 didn't go as we all wish. Otherwise, would have been sitting at 2-0. But thank you, Mike McCoy. We are sitting at 1-1 right now. So.
Yeah, and speaking of Mike McCoy, so Stebbins, why don't you go ahead and show us what you're drinking today?
Same as last week. Ballast Point, Dead Ringer, if you can see that.
Nice.
There we go. You?
And I, like I said last week, I am rocking the Malibu Mike and Diet Coke. Nice.
Malibu Mike.
Mike pulled off the win, so I am drinking the Malibu and Diet Coke this week.
Tastes good, doesn't it?
It tastes like high school. I grew up in England. I graduated from high school in England, and this was my super easy to drink. Let's get wasted on the weekend. Malibu and Diet Coke.
As I'm sure there'll be comments about this, high school for me was sour apple pucker for some reason. People,
nice.
That was everywhere. So that was high school for me. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do just a quick recap of last week. So, like we said, it was a great game. I guess we should start off with the negatives, and losing Danny Woodhead for the season early on in the game really sucked. That was just rough. I love the guy, like, as a person, and I love what he brings on the field. But I mean, if you want to look at a silver lining, it's finally going to force the team to commit to Melvin Gordon and commit to a true running game rather than all these, inside zones, shotgun draws. I mean, which they've been effective this year, but it's still nice to see that the team is now going to, commit to the first round running back they traded up for.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that I think has been very noticeable in the first 2 games was that shotgun draw that everyone loves so dearly was only being ran really with Woodhead for the most part. So yeah, I think you'll definitely see a lot less of that. But something going back to, I want to say it was KP. Sorry if I'm misappropriating that to someone else. Did an article in the offseason about how underutilized Melvin Gordon possibly could have been in the passing game. So getting him more involved in the passing game could be a great thing for him. Not only getting him more trust with him and more confidence in the running game, but getting him going in the passing game could be huge too. So I'm excited to see what the offense looks like actually without Woodhead. I know that 2 years ago when Woodhead went down with the broken ankle or whatever that was, the offense really sputtered. But under Wisenhunt, I think he can utilize the weapons he has to a greater extent.
Yeah, it'll definitely be good to see how the offense changes. And I think it'll be really good for Melvin Gordon in the passing game, not only as a receiver out of the backfield, but also, I mean, one of the biggest things he needs to improve on is his pass blocking. And with only 1 padded practice a week now with the new rules, there's only so much improvement he can make in practice. He needs those game reps of seeing defensive players coming at him and getting in position to block them. So I think that'll be really good for him going forward.
Definitely. I haven't really keyed in on his pass blocking in the first 2 weeks. Have you noticed whether it's upgraded from last season at all, or if it's still something he needs to work on?
So they're putting him in position to win, to succeed now. I noticed it a couple times in the last game, and I didn't really see that many one-on-one situations with him. It was mostly basically him helping out the offensive lineman. He basically, helped double team a block that King Dunlap had already engaged in, and he didn't get in the way. And it, based on who was coming at the quarterback, it looked like the right decision to me of where he should have gone to provide help. So I think he's already improving a little bit, and it's only going to get better.
Great. So yeah, I think all around we can pretty much agree that although it does suck for the offense and of course for Danny Woodhead and pretty much every Charger fan, because who doesn't love Danny Woodhead, it's going to be good for Melvin Gordon, his development. So,
yeah, definitely. It's not completely, 2 steps back, but it probably 2 steps back, but 1 step forward, and it might wind up being a net positive at the end of the year. And actually, it is something that needs to be addressed. That it is a good conversation to have. That could be possibly the last time we see Danny Woodhead in a Chargers uniform. I mean, he's going to be 32 by the time the offseason rolls around. He has only played, I think, 1 complete season in the last 3-4 seasons. And what was the number? He's played in 21 of a possible 40-something games for the Chargers. So it's just, I don't know if they spend the money to bring him back, unless he really just loves it here and is willing to give somewhat of a team discount.
I think it's not just a team discount. I agree with that though, but also just an age, honestly, discount. I mean, a 32-year-old running back really doesn't get paid money. It just doesn't really happen. Now, you always, of course, have, for some reason, the fan favorite for him to end up, which is with the Patriots after this year. For some reason, people always talk about him with the Patriots. Those athletic white guys. But I think that really, honestly, if he's willing to take a smaller deal, I don't see why the Chargers wouldn't try to bring him back. I don't see what the negative could possibly be. There's no way he's going to get overpaid if you want to.
Right. That's a good point.
Way, so.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, if he's willing to make a deal, he definitely provides value on the team, and would enable Tom Telesco to wait until the 3rd, 4th, 5th round to take a running back, rather than him starting to feel like, we really need to grab a guy in the 2nd, when they've got other positions they need to address, like wide receiver and offensive line and safety and edge player, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah, really, especially in this draft class with the running backs. Man, it's such a good running back class. I know a lot of people haven't gone, of course, to the scouting portion of it. We're still super early in the season, but anyone that watches college football knows how great the running back group is going to be this next draft. So 3rd, 4th, 5th round running back would be amazing. And having someone as solid as Woodhead and having Gordon, if he can continue the way he's looking, that'd be a fantastic addition. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to watch out for, though, for sure, as it develops.
Cool. All right. So other notes from last game: the Chargers once again shut a 2nd team in a row down on the ground. They couldn't really get anything going there, and the passing game didn't really get going until the end of the 3rd quarter and through the 4th quarter, when the Chargers had really obviously kind of shut it down. And this time they put themselves in a position where they could afford to shut it down, rather than last week when they just kind of jumped the gun and shut it down a little too early.
Yeah, definitely. The one exception to that, I'd say, would be the last drive by the Jaguars in the first half, where they seemed like they kind of did let off the gas on the defensive side of the ball to let them get into that field goal range. So that'd be the only exception. But yeah, they really kept it going throughout most of the game, really. And I'd even say probably even closer to around 7 minutes to go. Honestly, it seemed like that's when they really kind of let off there.
Yeah.
But no, it was a really impressive showing all around. I'd have to agree with that.
So just real quick to wrap up last week, let's go over our bold predictions and see how we did. So I'll start. And last week I called on defense for Jaleel Latai to concuss himself and or someone else. And I came close. It looked like a concussion, but he broke his clavicle. He's going to be out for – it's kind of unknown at this point. I mean, I saw somewhere somebody say as little as 3 to 4 weeks, but I'm thinking probably closer to 5 to 6 weeks. And he obviously took out – I think that was Hearns. Was it Hearns or was it – oh, no, it was Denard Robinson. That's right.
Yes, it was Denard. It was DX. That's right.
Yeah, he took out Denard Robinson.
Offensive weapon.
Both of them were down hard, and so I'm calling that like a 3/4 point for that bold prediction. And then on offense, I called Phillip Rivers going for over 300 and over 3 touchdowns, and he got one of those. He got 4 touchdowns last week. He's exceeded my bold prediction for touchdowns, but he didn't quite get 300 yards passing, and he didn't need to. I mean, the Chargers are the only team in the league so far this year that have run the ball more than they've passed the ball. And it's been working for him. Melvin Gordon he's doing really well this year. He's getting the carries he needs, and he's making the most of it. So I'm not mad about missing the 300 yards because he didn't need to pass that. He didn't need to pass that much. I think he had 24 pass attempts, and 4 of those wound up being throwaways. So he just didn't need to. So I'll take that as a win. And so what about you? How'd you do?
Well, my bold predictions were Gordon having over 150 yards combined and 2 touchdowns. He had, I think, 120 combined and 1 touchdown. So not quite what I had guessed. But nonetheless, I'm happy with what he did. So, and then Tyrell, I had 5 catches for over 100 yards with a 20-yard average. He did have 3 for 60. So I got the average right, but not exactly 5 catches. I'm kind of reaching there. So I didn't get either of my 2. But just to kind of comment on what you had said about Adai and kind of also piggybacking off of the commenting on last week, you mentioned 2 steps backward, 1 step forward, possibly with Gordon. I think it's the opposite with Adai. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, maybe with McCoy, only because he has a little bit lack of experience. But we are going to be out of Adai for anywhere from 3 to 8 weeks from all the different projections I've seen. So that's something to also kind of go over from last week too. It's going to be a big change for the defense there, and one I'm excited for. So.
Yeah. I think Adrian Phillips's days of being inactive on game day are probably over for a little while. He's probably going to be active this week with McCoy and Lowry starting, and I'd expect to see Stuckey probably get his most live action game snaps on defense that he's gotten since the end of last season. So that'll be good to see how McCoy will handle stepping up, because we've been hyping him all off season. He's looked great whenever he's in the game. So now to see him get an actual start and get some, really meaningful snaps that aren't at the end of the game, it'll be good to see both how he's used and how he handles that.
For sure. Definitely excited to see that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's move on to this week. So this week the Chargers are traveling to Indianapolis. Actually, I'm pretty sure they landed about 30 minutes ago in Indianapolis. So they're going to be playing the 0-2 Colts, who are probably going to be pretty motivated to not go 0-3, especially at home. So it's going to be really important for the Chargers to match that intensity going into the game. So it'll be, again, another really big test on McCoy to see how he handles the intensity of the game.
Definitely. Are we going to be going over the offense first, the defense first?
Well, let's go over injuries real quick. So
injuries, okay.
So for the Chargers injury report was once again, thankfully, pretty short. Joey Bosa is out. He was limited all 3 days this week, but he was actually practicing, so that's a good sign. So I would expect maybe for him to get a couple snaps next week, but he's already been ruled out for this week, so count him out. And then Jaleel Adai is also out with his clavicle. And then we had Antonio Gates listed as doubtful this week. Antonio Gates did not practice at all this week with a hamstring injury is what they reported it as. And I would expect to see – I don't know if they're going to make a move to bring up another tight end, but they set themselves up to bring up another tight end. They signed a 3rd tight end to the practice squad, which is pretty crazy. You're only allowed 10 spots on the practice squad, and a 1/3 of them basically now are tight ends. So either it would be interesting to see if they bring up a Jake McGee or Asante Cleveland. If not, then they're just rolling with Hunter Henry and McGrath, and which would be even more interesting too, since they still only have 4 wide receivers on the active roster. I doubt they roll into the game with only 2 tight ends and 4 wide receivers. That just seems pretty crazy to me.
No, absolutely. The team's still, I believe, carrying 10 offensive linemen. Is that right on the active roster?
I think so, yeah. And speaking of offensive linemen, we've got Franklin is questionable. He was limited Wednesday and Thursday, and then he was a full participant today. And then Dunlap missed. He was limited on Monday. I guess he was sick, but he was full participant Thursday and Friday. So he's good to go. And Tyrone Williams was on the injury report for the week with a shoulder, It was probably that catch near the end of the game. Clemens kind of threw one up to him, and he came down. He came down weird and was holding his hand as he ran off to the side. But he was full participant all 3 days this week. So Chargers are looking pretty good. They technically only have 4 people on the injury report. 2 are out, which was expected with Bosa and Adai, and then Franklin's questionable, which is probably what would have been probable last year. But with that gone, he's officially questionable. And Antonio Gates, I wouldn't expect him to play.
Same here. I think that with the team carrying 10 offensive linemen in week 1 and week 2, each having 3 inactive, you might see whoever their 10th offensive lineman is on the depth chart, whoever that might be, Wiggins or Burwell, whoever it is, you might see one of them let go for it in favor for one of those tight ends to bring them up for this game. I expect them to bring a tight end up more than I would, obviously, a wide receiver. They went with 4 wide receivers last week, and they only had 4 active in week 1. So I'm guessing they're probably going to have that third tight end brought up, given that Gates more than likely is not going to be going. Yep. I bet I'm picture's probably going to be Asante Cleveland. I mean, they did keep him at the initial 53. Right. But yeah, I would expect Burwell or Wiggins, honestly, to be one of those cuts because obviously they love Foley, who's been really good whenever he's come in. So I think Wiggins is probably that last guy. So. Yeah,
they've got a lot of depth on the offensive line, and everyone's pretty relatively healthy. So that's probably one of the most likely scenarios. And then the Colts I have to scroll down to see all of it on my page.
I
think it's 18 names officially. So I'll run through it real quick. So we had Henry Anderson, who, if you're a BFTB follower, we talked about him all the time, especially Kyle Posey.
He interviewed him.
Posey loved the guy, and so but he's been out, and he was a full participant all 3 days this week. And I guess Pagano, not the Chargers Pagano, but the Colts Pagano, said that he expects Henry Anderson to play. So that will help them out a lot. Based on it'll be a big improvement over what they've had in the first 2 weeks. Then you have Darius Butler, who's officially ruled out. He's one of the top corners on the team, so that hurts them. Trent Cole, he's questionable, but he's probably one of those that would have been a probable last year. He had 2 limiteds and then a full today. Cromartie is playing. He had a rib injury, but he was full both yesterday and today, and they didn't even list him on the report, so he's playing. Vontae Davis, another one of their cornerbacks, was limited Wednesday and Thursday, full today, and he's questionable.
I don't think he's played this year, has he?
No. I think he did play in week 1.
Okay.
Because the 2 that they were talking about coming back this week were Cromartie and were 2 former Chargers. Basically, it was Cromartie and Patrick Robinson.
Okay. Well, on PFF they have him at 0 snaps either week. So
maybe he didn't play. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, he might be rusty coming back anyway. So
yeah. So there's another help for the Chargers wide receivers, and then Clayton Gathers, one of their safeties. He's listed as questionable. He was kind of up and down this week. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He was full Thursday, but then he was limited again today. Then they've got Denzel Good, who's listed as a tackle both on the Chargers website and on the Colts website, but according to the Colts SB Nation website, he's been starting at right guard. And the Colts depth chart also has him at right guard. So, but he's out officially, and they really don't have that good at backups. They've got Joe Haig, and they've got their backup, one of their backup centers, Jonathan Harrison, are the 2 options that might be coming in to fill in for him. So, and being
not very good anyway. So
yeah, being at right guard, that's going to be Darius Philon and Karen Reed can have good games if going up against him.
Definitely.
Frank Gore's on the report, but he's pretty much a full go. They've got another safety, TJ Green, who's questionable. I'm just going to kind of skip over some of the names that aren't that important. And then T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton's interesting. So he has a knee injury. He's not listed as being limited or anything, or even full participant. He's just not listed on the report for Wednesday. But then he was limited yesterday, and he didn't practice today. And he's listed as questionable. And with Dante Moncrief, who's their other starting wide receiver, completely out, that could be really interesting because behind T.Y. Hilton, they have Philip Dorsett and then nothing. They have whatever a Quan Bray is,
Chester Rogers.
A Chester Rogers and Devin Street. So probably the best triplet of corners in the league in Verrett, Hayward, and Flowers could be going up against Quan Bray, Chester Rogers, and Devin Street.
I'm actually a fan, or I was a fan of Devin Street coming out of college. I don't think he ever really did much in Dallas, but there's definitely not much there. Nothing to be afraid of if Hilton isn't a full go. So yeah.
So to Quill Jackson, another one of those that he's not even really listed. He didn't practice on Thursday, but he was full again today. And then one that'll be interesting to watch is their starting center, Ryan Kelly, who, again, another one of those that if you follow BFTB, we talked about him all the time this summer. He injured his shoulder and didn't practice at all on Thursday, but he was full today. So he's kind of banged up, and a rookie that's kind of banged up going against Mebane could be fun to watch.
Definitely, especially with how much Mebane's been dominating the inside. That'd be really fun to watch. So
yeah. So only a couple more here. Bear with us. Kendall Langford at D end. He's got an abdominal strain, but he was full today, and he's not even listed, so he should be good to go. And then another big name, Andrew Luck, hurt his shoulder last week, and he did not practice Wednesday. He was limited on Thursday, and then he was full today. And he's officially listed as questionable. But that will be interesting to watch, especially if the Chargers are getting pressure and putting them into the dirt a couple times. That could spell a ton of trouble for them.
Absolutely.
And then you got Robert Mathis, who, he's kind of like Gates. I mean, he's probably going to be on the injury report every week, but he'll be there on game time, except for Gates this week, obviously. And then the only other big name really is Patrick Robinson, he did pretty well for the Chargers last year, and a lot of us were pushing to get him re-signed for this season. And he is still recovering from a concussion. He's yet to play for them this season. It was kind of weird. He was limited on Wednesday. He was a full participant, but with the non-contact jersey on Thursday, and then was completely out again today. So they ruled him out. So the Colts are banged up. It's a good week to be on the Chargers.
Definitely. Especially going against that secondary, that's going to be something really fun to watch. San Diego's been doing really well in the passing game, getting those wide receivers going, even with all the injuries they've had. Really excited to see what they're going to do against those corners, whether they're coming off of injury or banged up or just plain inexperienced. So it's going to be fun.
All right, so we're going to start with the Chargers on offense. So we just talked about the Colts secondary is all sorts of beat up, and the Colts defensive line isn't that great, and they had their two starting DNs both on the injury report this week for one reason or another. So it'll be I'm not going to say it's going to be easy for the Chargers offense this week, but it definitely will be the easiest of the three matchups they've had.
Absolutely. That front of Indianapolis is just not very good. And seeing what the offensive line of San Diego has done so far, especially the interior, I'm really excited to see what the running game can do this week. And what a week to do it too after all the injuries they've had, to get the running game continue it going. That'd be really exciting to see. Melvin Gordon hopefully getting 25 plus carries. Nothing really scares me on the defensive front of them, really. I mean, Mathis is older. I know he's still good, but he's older. He doesn't really worry me too much. And like you said, he's on the injury report. Probably not going to miss time, but I don't know. I'm really excited to see what the offensive line can do. That interior has been mauling all. I'm excited to see what can happen there.
Yeah, I'm definitely ignoring a lot of these so-called fantasy experts this week that are saying to not start a bunch of Chargers on offense. I'm pretty sure I'm going to start every Charger that I have on offense. Tyrone Williams getting a start. I'm probably going to start Hunter Henry at tight end, especially if my other tight end in fantasy is Delaney Walker, and apparently he's been hurt all week. So I would have no problem starting any of the Chargers offense this week in fantasy, and they're going to put up big numbers. I mean, the Chargers are probably going to score, 28. I mean, I don't see them scoring any less than 24 points, but I'd probably say they'd score 28 or more.
Definitely. I know we'll get to the predictions at the end for the score, but I have them right around that same area there. Really, the only defensive guys that are starting that really worry me, or that I think are very good players. I mean, you have Mike Adams, who's actually had a really good year so far at safety. So he's really the only redeeming guy in the secondary at this point that I can think of right now. Patrick Robinson, if healthy, of course, is good. Vontae Davis, if healthy, is good, but they haven't been. So seeing what Benjamin Williams can do against them is really exciting. I would say Inman, but, well, we know about Inman. So, yeah, I think Henry possibly even could have his big breakout game. He's obviously going to be getting the big bulk of the snaps. He has been primarily a blocker, a very good one at that. But getting him out into some more routes, he might be a breakout game this week finally. So I have him in fantasy as a tight end, as a backup. I'll definitely be starting him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who picks up a bunch of those snaps. I mean a bunch of those targets, because Antonio Gates still got a decent amount. I think he had 6 or 7 targets last week, so those have to go somewhere. I mean that was even on a down week for Rivers. He only attempted 24 passes. So if he attempts that many or more this week, there's going to be 5 to 10 extra targets this week that are going to need to go to somebody, and it'll be interesting to see, does Benjamin continue to get that many targets? Does Dontrell Inman, who is leading the team in snaps at wide receiver for some unknown reason, does he actually start getting some targets on those snaps, or do those targets go to Hunter Henry? I mean, there was a quote that somebody asked Rivers this week about Hunter Henry and how he's going to handle this week and what his role is going to look like. And Rivers said he told Hunter, you've been killing it as a blocker, and don't worry about those catches. They're coming your way. You'll start getting them. So whether that means it's right away this week or is in the coming weeks, it'll be interesting to watch who picks up those targets this week.
Absolutely. Just kind of going over the snaps. As far as passing downs, Henry's only been in for 12 passing snaps each of the first 2 weeks, 12 in week 1 and 12 in week 2. That's clearly going to go way up this week. So you're in for more passing snaps, you're running more routes, more opportunities there to get some balls thrown your way. Obviously, the one catch he has had went for 20 yards, and I think half of it or even more than that was on after the catch. So it's definitely exciting to see what he can do. I know a lot of Charger fans have been a little restless and wanting to see him get involved in the offense more. Even though he has been involved in the running game, it doesn't put up the stats. So right. I'm excited to see him hopefully have that breakout game. I'm definitely pulling for that this week. So, I mean, he is my Twitter Abby, so
Yeah, I think that it's reasonable to project him having pretty much a breakout game this week. And then on offense, I mean, unlike last year where we were basically talking about a new starter on the offensive line almost every week, it's
every half. What are you talking about? Every half.
It's almost boring this week. I mean, this year we've got the same 5 guys out there again, which is awesome. Yeah, it's hashtag first world problems for sure. So it's going to be good having that consistency going out there again, and hopefully, I guess my one criticism from last week after looking at the clips that Posey posted, it really highlighted to me that Rivers is trying to get comfortable with this new group that he has out there, and so he's kind of getting tunnel vision a little bit, which is kind of strange for him. There was multiple times where either Hunter Henry or Tyrell were like wide open almost right off the snap, but Rivers was locked on to somebody else. So it'll be interesting to see if the offensive line can give Rivers a little bit of time. And last week he didn't have a ton of time, but he was getting the ball out so fast anyway that it didn't matter. But if he can get a little bit of time, if he can work over and find some of these guys and really break the game up, and because even just from the clips Posey posted, he left 2 touchdowns on the field that were just wide open, one to Hunter Henry, one to Tyrell.
I was going to ask you that. Which one was the play right before the fumble where it was a short route right in the end zone where he had a good 2 or 3 yard coverage off the guy on his right side?
That was Tyrell. Tyrell. Yeah. Tyrell was wide open, and Rivers just held the ball a little too long, and then that was the strip sack.
And those are one of those things that people might say, oh, look, they're finding negative things, but it's a nice thing to be able to look at that and say, you know what could have been,
Right.
but they still did enough to have a blowout victory. We're not saying that the team was bad or had a bad game or whatever, but clearly there's always things you can improve upon. And that sounds like a cliche, but it's really true. I mean, that and then the snaps within, man, those are the two biggest complaints I think in my eyes as far as from last week. But kind of going back a little bit to the offensive line, I was thinking about this week, and with as bad as Minnesota's offensive line has looked this year, I wonder how much of that has to do with the offensive line coach that we stole from them, basically. I know that a big part of it has to do with Slauson coming in, and obviously with the offense from Wisenhunt not being that draw run constantly. But the different running coaches that we brought in, the one from New England and the one from Minnesota, I wonder how much of a part they're playing in the improvement of the offensive line, because it's clearly better. I mean, it's night and day. So
yeah, I think they're providing a pretty good impact. I mean, seeing how excited Kyle Posey and Jerome have been getting on Twitter when they go back and watch these games, and there's some of the schemes that the offensive line, and especially with Hunter Henry out there, Hunter Henry is basically a sixth offensive lineman with how good he is at blocking. And so the creative schemes that they've been using to blow open some holes in the run game have been pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
So basically we have no worries on Chargers on offense. So let's move over to defense, where again, there's not a ton to worry about. I mean, T.Y. Hilton, he was injured this week, and he's going to be their number one receiver when he's on the field because of Moncrief being injured. And Verrett will probably be shadowing him most of the time, but they do like to throw T.Y. in the slot a lot. And I've kind of been noticing that when Verrett is shadowing somebody, he doesn't usually follow them into the slot. Last week, a lot of times when Robinson moved into the slot, it was Flowers who was on him. Yeah. And so that could create a potential problem if they're running T.Y. in the slot a lot. T.Y. obviously has a lot more speed than Flowers does. So it'll be interesting to see how often they throw him into the slot. And then, anyone who's not T.Y. Hilton that draws a matchup with Verrett is not going to get a catch. He's probably not even going to get targeted. So it'll be interesting to see again, like how T.Y. is used, and if they use their tight end as much as they should. I mean, if they've watched tape, Dwayne Allen's a pretty good tight end. I really liked him coming out of college, and the Colts obviously felt good enough to keep him over Kobe Fleener, who went to the Saints. So it'll be interesting to see how Dwayne Allen impacts the game, because as we've seen, the Chargers they've had a lot of problems with tight ends in the first 2 weeks. But they had less problems last week because of one big change they made. And we're going to go back to the snap counts real quick, that Jatavis Brown went from 19 snaps in week 1 to having 31 or 32 snaps this week. So he had a huge jump in snaps, and it was a lot of third down. And I think that the Jaguars last week were 0-6 on their first third down attempts. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, 4 of those were directly caused by Jatavis Brown making a play.
Absolutely. There was one in particular that he made a crazy play to slow down, or he made a crazy play to slow down what the offense was doing. He didn't get the tackle, but he slowed him down enough to where the other guys can come in and clean it up. The impact he has on third down alone is just tremendous. And to be honest, the hype is real with that kid. He's really something to watch. He's doing all this with really no preseason, almost no training camp. What he's doing is really impressive. The word on him was he was way too small, way too thin coming out of college. Where's his spot? Is he a safety? Is he outside, inside? Honestly, he's a weapon. And you really put him at inside, outside. He can blitz. I mean, what he can do is impressive. And he's clearly getting the same kind of attention from the coaches as his snaps are going up.
Yep.
You want him on the field. One thing that I know, we had discussed earlier, but it was the snaps that he's taking, though, seems to be coming from Perryman instead of from Teo. I think, though, part of that, and one thing that I also was thinking about this week, was all of preseason and all of training camp, who was the other signal caller? The other guy who had the helmet with the communication. It wasn't Brown and it wasn't Perryman. It was Teo, it was Zubnar, and it was Perry.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be swapping someone out, do you want Zubnar to come in for him? I mean, because if you have Perryman and you have Brown, you don't have that signal caller on the field.
Right. Yeah. They'd have to do some sort of, Perryman would have to have two helmets. He'd have to have
exactly.
He'd have to have his non-green dot helmet for first and second down, and then go change out helmets for third down, which isn't really feasible. So that's a good point. Is that they don't really have a way to reduce those snaps unless they take play calling duties away from Tao, which they're not going to do. The team loves him too much. So it really, unless it gets to a point where they trust Brown to call the plays on third down, which, I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, if he continues to play the way he's playing, I don't think it would be a stretch to say that they might trust him with that, midway through the season, because he's just, like you said, he's all over the field. There's only been a couple plays where he's kind of been out of position, but he can run with anyone. He runs with tight ends. He runs with wide receivers across the middle, unlike Puzzlesny, who poor guy.
On Benjamin. What was that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. For anyone who didn't notice, the Jaguars attempted to have Paul Puzzlesny one-on-one against Travis Benjamin, and that was the first deep pass to Benjamin. It was just pathetic. It was embarrassing. And
of all the linebackers, you choose the unathletic white guy. I don't.
Meanwhile, Miles Jack is sitting on the sideline like, cool, I guess.
He played corner.
Yeah.
He played corner in college, and nope, we're gonna do a Puzzlesny because that makes sense.
Yeah, so I would like to see them try and figure out a way to have Brown be stealing snaps from Teo instead of Perryman, but I like seeing him in the game more. And we hit on it earlier. We're going to see a lot more of McCoyle in the game this week, which will be good. I mean, Adai went down, and there may be some growing pains early on, but I don't think they'll be that big. I mean, McCoyle has basically stood up to every challenge they've given him this season so far and the offseason. So I think they're going to put him in a position to succeed, and I think he'll do it.
Completely agree. When I have seen him on the field, I know he hasn't gotten all of the snaps, but when he has been on the field, he has been impressive. He's definitely been taking care of his job. He's not giving up big plays. He's not being out of position noticeably. He's coming up with tackles. He hasn't really missed tackles yet. He's doing what's been asked of him, and really that's all you can really hope for out of a first-year player out of Canada. So really excited what he's done so far, and given him an opportunity to start. Really an exciting time for anyone who was a fan of McCoyle, which I believe were most Charger fans. But he's gotten about a fourth of the snaps that Adai and Lowry had, so he hasn't gotten a ton, and they've all been coverage snaps. 34 of his 35 snaps have been coverage snaps, only one on run defense. So that's really the only role he's been playing, which kind of lends to why he's a perfect fit to come in for Adai. And that Adai, 100 of his snaps were also coverage snaps. So
okay.
It should be a smooth transition for him. We'll definitely have to see how he does in the first string offense and with that many snaps, because I don't know if he's ever had that many. So definitely something to watch out for with him, but something that I know most of us are excited for.
Yeah, and like we were saying, I mean, this is a perfect week for him to do that, for him to make that start, because the Colts are super banged up and they're not that great to begin with. And as big of numbers as Andrew Luck has been putting up this year, he's still, he's got that gunslinger mentality. He's like a Matt Stafford, where, I mean, he's going to throw up that interception ball a couple times a game trying to force something in there, and he's going to need to, because they're going to be down. They're going to be down in the score, and he's going to be trying to make something happen. And he's either going to, take a shot from Perryman when he tries to run it, or he's going to throw up a ball that he shouldn't, and Verrett or Hayward's going to come down with it. And it's going to be, it's a good week for McColl to be getting his first start. I mean, you wouldn't want him to get his first start against, a good offense.
Definitely, yeah, and that's. I know we're on defense, but it's similar kind of idea to the time when we lost, when San Diego lost Woodhead, is that you kind of get to feel it out more against a defense that's kind of banged up and really not very good. But the only thing that really honestly concerns me, and that's kind of still not having all the trust back in Flowers, the one thing that Colts wide receivers can do is run. Like they can flat out run.
Yeah.
Dorsett, especially. I mean, he was the track star coming out. That's the one thing I'm concerned of is watching one of them just straight run by Flowers. That's my only real concern in the secondary. Otherwise, and again, that's more of just not trust still from last season with as bad as it was, even though Flowers has been really good this year.
Yeah, I think he leads the team in tackles for a loss right now. I mean, he's been killer out on the edge. Anytime anyone tries to throw a screen, Flowers is pretty much there to blow it up.
It's just that deep speed is the only concern that I have, and that's something I'll definitely be watching out for. Just that nightmare from last season still kind of haunts me a little bit. So still kind of looking for that. But that's the only thing that honestly worries me about the offense. Frank Gore doesn't worry me.
No.
I mean, yeah, he's good in shorter yardage, and you might see him more in the second half. It seems to be when they play him more. At least that's not based off of statistics, just for me watching it. I don't really have anything that worries me too much, especially if Ty is banged up or not playing. There's just not really a whole lot there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and one thing we kind of forgot to mention on offense too, we forgot to hit on is that so the Chargers are going into this game with right now, as it stands, only 2 active tight ends and 4 wide receivers. And one of those wide receivers has only been with the team since Monday, Griff Whalen.
Griff.
And I mean,
his name is Griff. I'm sorry, I still can't get over that.
Oh, I chuckle at it every time because I don't know if you've ever watched Red versus Blue, but
big Rooster Teeth fan. So.
Oh yeah, Griff Ball is going to be funny this week. But I mean, he does have a little bit of advantage because he's coming from the Colts. He's been against a lot of these defenders that he's going to be seeing this week, and he's familiar with how the defense works. So that'll help him. It'll just be a matter of getting rapport with Rivers, and speaking of rapport. Dexter McCluster, who came in to replace Rivers, to replace Woodhead. Rivers, I think, said today they asked him how's McCluster doing picking up the playbook? How's he doing with the offense? And Rivers said he's pretty much got it already because he had both he's had experience with both Adam Gase and with Wisenhunt, and so McCluster had a huge advantage coming to the Chargers because there's just a couple a bit of the terminology is different, but apparently he's picked it right up, and so I'd probably expect to see him not so much running the ball, but he's probably going to get a couple of those targets that are bleeding out, that are going to bleed over from both Woodhead and Gates being out.
Definitely. Do you see both him and Andre Williams being active, or one of them, or Andre being inactive, or how do you see that playing out?
I think it'll depend on what they do at tight end. I think if they do release, Wiggins or Burwell and bring up one of those tight ends and they activate a third tight end, I don't think they'll have Andre Williams active. But if they decide to not activate another tight end, they're going to have to probably have 4 running backs or is it? It's going to be 3, right?
If you count the fullback. If you count the fullback.
Well, and Farrell might still be active too.
Yeah,
they're just going to need all of those offensive bodies because, you have 1 wide receiver go down, you're down to 3. You have 1 tight end go down, you'd be down to 1 tight end. And then you're probably playing Derek Watt at the other tight end. So,
oh God.
Yeah, I think if they're smart, they need to activate another tight end and not.
They really have to
not go with 4 running backs.
They really have to, and I don't know why or how I decided to just not talk about Griff Whalen, but it might have something to do with the fact that he took Isaiah Burse's roster spot. So, still kind of sour about that. But hey, he's back on the practice squad, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's good. At least they kept him around.
Yeah, that Fresno State bias is never going to go away. So.
All right, so before we get into bold predictions and game predictions, let's go over some of these questions. So I'll pull the first question from BFTB. It's from Boltwheat, and he asks, can Dexter McCluster fill an important role with Woodhead out? How long do you think it will take him to prove himself? I think he's going to start filling a role right off the bat. Like I said, he's picked up the playbook really fast, and Rivers he's one of those quarterbacks that he makes everyone around him better. We've had he makes Seiya Jaratutu look like a rock star.
Hey, that's the Fresno guy. Watch out.
And somebody with Dexter McCluster's skill and speed. I mean, I think it'll be pretty easy for him to. I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to be a game changer, but he'll probably make an impact week 1 with the Chargers.
Absolutely. I know you had mentioned Rivers had said something about him being a fit already, but I think even McCluster himself mentioned picking it up really quickly too. I think that was to Annie or someone like that. But no, I think he could have an impact. Honestly, though, I wouldn't mind those opportunities going to Gordon, see if he can prove that he can do those things. At this point, he's earned all of the opportunities that there are, in my opinion. I think he's earned the right to get those snaps and to get those routes and to get all that going. He needs obviously to work on the pass blocking, and what a week to do it. I mean, there's not much of a pass rush coming from them other than Mathis. So I think that's the perfect week for him to get some snaps. So I don't think there'd be an issue with him getting acclimated to the offense, talking about McCluster, but I still would like to see more of those opportunities go to Gordon than they were when they were splitting Woodhead and Gordon. So if that made sense.
Yep. All right, so then our first question here on the YouTube channel, and we kind of already touched on this, but Connor Ferrente asks, how many running backs do you think the team carries on Sunday, and who will it be? So we've already kind of touched on that, and I'm pretty sure they're going to roll with 3 active running backs again. Andre Williams will be inactive, and it's going to be Farrow, Gordon, and McCluster.
I had completely forgotten about Farrow, but I'd have to agree with what you said. Although I would like to see what Andre Williams can do. Farrow has been in the offense longer. I think that he's a better fit right now, so I'm totally good with that.
Yeah. And then Mr. Sniping Freak asks, will Benjamin become the receiver the offense needs to move the chains? He looked the part last week. I mean, he had those comeback routes that were basically right at the chains, and that was money almost every single time. And they don't have – I don't really see the Colts having the corners to be able to stick with that kind of route this week unless they're really just expecting it. But then – I mean, you get them to bite on that one time, and then the next time Benjamin does a double move and goes down the field, and there's no catching him. So they have to respect his deep speed. So that comeback route is going to be there almost every time. And I think he's probably money on first downs.
Absolutely. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm at third downs, but yeah, go ahead.
Getting the first down, though, on third down.
Yes.
If you, and you should, listen to the Lightning Round podcast with Garrett Sisti and Jamie Hoyle, they went over that, and really it made a lot of sense that they really were setting up Benjamin the entire game for that deep double move, and the play action, and it worked perfectly. Like the first few catches he had were both comeback routes or ends, and you're talking 9, 10, 11 yards getting first downs. And he can do that consistently. And there was even a clip, I believe, that KP put up where he had gotten huge amount of separation on a guy. I don't think the ball went his way, but he got huge separation on a comeback route, and he can definitely run those routes. It's clear that the rapport with him and Rivers is growing week by week, and clearly did from the start of camp because they were not on the same page whatsoever. But they're getting better and better as it goes, and he's becoming more of a seasoned route runner quickly, which is something very encouraging to see because he wasn't running many routes in practice in preseason either. So he's growing quickly with this offense, which is fantastic to see because it really needs it with the injuries that have happened. Because you have 2 great route runners go down, we need him to be that guy.
Yeah,
and so far he has been, and I think he will continue to grow.
Yep, and one thing that'll be interesting to watch on third downs will be how Griff Whalen is used, because when I was after his name got brought up, I started looking at him, and he was one of Andrew Luck's favorite targets on third down. Wow. He's a really tough guy. He knows how he's very cognizant of where that first down marker is, which sometimes wide receivers kind of tend to slack on that. And so he constantly made sure his route was deep enough that even if he was coming back to the ball, he was going to get that first down. So he might get, a handful of snaps on those third down situations. And so that'll be interesting to watch. It'll be interesting to see if he, set up that kind of reputation in the couple of days of practice this week.
Nice. I honestly haven't seen a single snap of his that I can think of, so I did not know that. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Also, Joe, I will just kind of just real quickly though too, I think you're going to see a lot of Hunter Henry as well in this. As far as the offense needing to move the chains, I think he'll definitely be a big impact there too. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they definitely need to get him involved in that because that's one of the reasons they signed him. He's pretty much money when you throw him the ball. He doesn't drop the ball very often at all. He does run good routes, and he's got the body to put himself in position. So he's going to be key on third downs too. All right, so that pretty much does it for questions. We only had 3 this week, so that's kind of. I'll take some of the blame for that because I didn't get the article posted until today.
I didn't tweet about it, so that's also my fault too.
So if you didn't get a question asked, our apologies. We'll make sure to post earlier next week.
And also, anyone who's watching, encourage you throw out some questions, whether it be in the post on BFTB or during the live broadcast on YouTube. Throw some questions out there. Tweet at us. Either way, get us some questions. We'll be happy to answer them. So.
Yep. All right, so let's jump into some bold predictions. So why don't you go first?
All right, the one part I was not ready for, but that's all right. Let's see here. Because of what we had discussed earlier in the defensive front of the Colts not really being something to worry about, I know Henry Anderson's fantastic, and we all loved him coming out of college. Mathis is getting older, but he definitely is still an impact guy. I still see him having a lot of success running the ball. Especially with Hunter Henry getting even more snaps, the interior offensive line killing it right now. So I'd have to continue on with my Melvin Gordon bold prediction, and not to repeat last week because I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to say 125 plus rushing yards and one touchdown. One touchdown. Not the boldest, but still something. And as a second one, I'm going to say that Brett gets a pick this week. So
okay, I like that. So for mine. We've been kind of hinting at it that Hunter Henry is going to be focused more in the passing game this week, and I'm going to predict that Hunter Henry gets at least 6 catches this week, and one of them is going to be a touchdown.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love that.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. And then on defense, I think that's a tough one, but I think I'm going to go with similar production to last week. I'm going to go with –
a guy hurting himself?
No. No, I'm going to –
off the bench? That's impressive.
I'm going to go with 2 team interceptions, and I'm going to go with 3 team sacks.
Nice.
So
you know what? That reminds me, I did have a bold prediction of Atauchu getting 2 sacks last week, which clearly was wrong.
Oh, yeah.
So I forgot about that one. I want to make sure I bring attention to my miss on that. Okay,
and then so finally, let's actually, before we get into our actual predictions, we did get Frank the Tank came back. Thanks, Frank, for tuning in again. I've seen you at least both the first 2 weeks, so thanks for tuning in again. He asked, can Tyrell be a true number 1 wide receiver?
Just to jump in on this one first, I fully believe that he can develop to where he's a primary target for Phillip Rivers. I don't know how you want to define a true number 1 in the San Diego offense. I mean, he's getting better as a route runner. He's not nearly, of course, what Keenan Allen can do. And as long as Keenan Allen's there, he's the true number 1. I mean, let's just be honest there. But but he can stretch the field unlike most other wide receivers that San Diego's had in a long time, and just his pure speed. The crossing routes he can run are always open. Those kind of things that he can do. I definitely think that he can be a number 1 option for an offense, but as far as number 1 wide receiver, I don't know how you really want to define that. But his upside is just tremendous. So I just see him getting better and better.
Sure. Yeah, and I agree. I think Tyrell can develop into being I don't know if I'd say a true number 1, but I think he'd be a high end number 2. He's going to be a guy that is going to start getting a lot more production. He's going to start getting a lot more respect throughout the league. He's going to start getting a lot more Rivers targets, especially as he proves himself that he's not going to have a problem with drops and that he can, bring in the ball consistently. But yeah, so long story short, I don't know if he'll ever get, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson style number 1, but I think he'll be, he might get to the Vincent Jackson area and be a really productive high end 2.
Completely agree.
All right, so let's go into game predictions. I already gave mine with the staff article this week. I had the Chargers winning 28-14, I think. Yeah, I think it's at least two scores, at least a 2-score victory. And the only reason I gave the Colts 14 points is because they're going to get some garbage time points, and they're going to be desperate, and they'll score some, but I don't think it's going to be particularly close again for a second week in a row.
I'm going to go along the same kind of lines there. I'm going to say 31-16. They have to settle for 3 field goals, which are probably going to be in the lost it, in the red zone. And I only say that because the red zone defense for San Diego has been good, been actually very good, and shutting down in the red zone. So I fully believe that it's going to be that kind of thing where they might get some yardage getting to the red zone, but they're going to get shut down once they get there. And San Diego's offense, I don't see stalling out in this game at all. So, yeah, 31-16, I believe is what I said.
Yep.
So, yeah, going with that.
Cool. So we both have victories this week. And, yeah, I think it's going to be a good week. I think we'll be happy to watch the game on Monday, rewatch the game on Monday, rather than, oh, no, I have to watch the game again.
Well, and I hope I get to watch the game. For those that don't know, I'm not in San Diego. I'm actually up in the Fresno area, and we did not get the Charger game last week. So I had to watch the Red Zone Network and follow along with Twitter to get any kind of updates on what was going on in the game. I tried to find some streams, but that wasn't the most fruitful of efforts. So, yeah, hopefully I get it this week. And you can clearly tell whenever I do and don't, because my tweeting goes way down whenever I don't get the actual game. I'm just retweeting everyone else. But yeah, if I do get it, I'll definitely be able to rewatch it. The only one I have to rewatch right now is the freaking Niner or the Chief game, so that's not great. So.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in this week. We'll be back again next week. Garrett should be back again next week as well. And we will. Oh, I think we did get a couple more questions, and we are still under an hour. So you know what? Let's go and answer a couple more questions.
Let's tackle them.
Sign off. Okay, so John Thor, realistically, though, does McCoyle play better, worse, or the same as 37? And he also says, thanks for doing this. He loves it. And then a follow-on question is, what would be a solid game for McCoyle?
Okay. And this is going to be it seems like recently people have been, I don't know if that's just this week or I'm paying more attention to it, people have been coming out in defense of Adai, that he is a really good player and all of that. I don't necessarily believe that. I don't think he's as bad as some bill him out to be. I think that it kind of gets exacerbated by how many times he injures himself and his teammates. I don't think he's necessarily the worst tight end, but in every way, in every single way, I think McCoyle is better.
Yeah,
in every single way. Whether
you mean safety, not tight end.
I say tight end?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's gone. Yeah, no, I'm going to say he plays better in every single way, shape, and form. He's a better tackler. He doesn't just throw his body around recklessly. He seems to be in position to make the play more often than not. I mean, how many strip sacks did he have in practice and in preseason? The guy makes plays, and that's something I can't necessarily say about Adai. I mean, Adai got his first pick, I believe, in week 1, did he not? Or was that in preseason? I mean, he didn't.
That was in the preseason. He didn't get a pick in the regular season.
Yeah, he's never had a pick in the regular season. I mean, I don't think he's as good as some people like to say he is. As far as what would be a solid game for McCoyle, just continue what he's already been doing. Continue his progression. Be in position, make your tackles. He doesn't necessarily have to make game-changing plays. That's not expected in someone's third all-time NFL game. Just
right.
continue to progress and be in the right position. That's all they really need to do with the kind of corners that San Diego has. Just be in position.
Yep. Yeah, I think McCoyle probably. I don't think it'll be noticeable. It's not going to jump off the page at you that jump off the screen at you that he's putting together a better game than Adai. But I think he brings more to the defense, and he might allow them to do some more things that Adai didn't allow them to do. And it'll probably save at least one penalty a game, I'd say. And,
yeah.
And take away at least one injury commercial. So that'll be good. But as far as a solid game, like you said, as long as he's just in position, I think a solid game for him would be not giving up a deep pass, and hopefully doing better than both Adai and Lowry as far as providing support over the top. One kind of funny thing to point out along those lines is NFL Network put out an article today. If you want to go show him some hate, Ike Taylor, he's on Twitter at Ike __ swaggin' you.
That was Ike that did that?
Yes, that was Ike. So Ike ranked the top 10 corners this week, and he dropped Jason Verrett from 7 to 10 overall. And his explanation for this was Verrett, and I'm quoting here, Verrett gave up 44 yards on 4 targets against Allen Robinson in San Diego's 38-14 victory over Jacksonville. It gets better. Verrett is a good corner in the making, but he needs to tighten up in coverage. That will come with experience. Get the F out of here. Get the fuck out of here. All I read when I see that explanation, all I see when I read that is I didn't watch the game. I just looked at the stats, and now I'm making baseless accusations. Clearly. Because Verrett shut Allen Robinson down. And it wasn't even close. Allen Robinson's first catch came with 26 seconds left in the third quarter, and it was on Brandon Flowers. And his stat line for
7 yards.
His stat line for the game was 3 catches for 56 yards, including a 35-yard reception that technically was against Verrett, but Verrett was very obviously expecting help over the top. And just like what happened in the preseason when they played the Titans, Lowry was hours late getting over there, and Verrett was just he was expecting help over the top, and there was no help there. So Allen Robinson was able to come down with the catch. It was ridiculous.
And that, I believe, came with around 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter when San Diego had clearly taken their foot off the gas defensively in the time which they should have taken their foot off the gas defensively, not in the third quarter like they did in week 1. So that's totally fine. But in the 3 quarters preceding that, he had 0 catches on Verrett. 0. Yeah. He only was thrown to once. One time he was thrown to. So, no, there's no way. He completely shut him down, just like he did Antonio Bryant last year, just like he does everybody. Yeah. He shut him completely the fuck down.
So moving back to the original point, I think McCoyle probably is there on time in coverage and takes that catch away, eliminates that completely. So I think that's what McCoyle brings that neither Adai or Lowry does.
For sure.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Garrett, Daniel, I know you haven't been watching the YouTube feed, but I think we averaged like 16 viewers the entire time, which is about 4 more than we had last week. So
nice. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you guys had fun. Like we said, feel free to spam us with questions in the feed next time. And thanks for watching. Oh, and a quick update. So I finally figured out how to get the audio file from this YouTube video and make it small enough to allow us to upload it to the BFTV radio page, because they cap us at like, I think it's 90 megabytes or something. So I was finally able to figure that out. So the audio version of this will be posted to the BFTV radio page and blasted out on Twitter tomorrow morning. So perfect. For anyone who wants to listen to this again, like after the game, because I know that's been a fun, thought experiment is watching these again after the game. If you'd rather just listen to them after the game, like maybe on your way to work in the morning on Monday, the audio file will be available Saturday morning.
Sweet. Thank you all for tuning in. Just again, I'm Daniel Stebbins, D-Stebbs on Twitter.
And I'm Stanley at Bullfen in Denver.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. You have a good evening.